Hello, this is the Witness History podcast from the BBC World Service. We started broadcasting our first-hand accounts from the past back in 2009, and all this week, 10 years on, we're bringing you some of our favourite programmes from the early days. In 2003, the US and its allies invaded Iraq and toppled Saddam Hussein from power. For Iraqis, bombardment and struggle would become the norm. Robin Lustig heard from one ordinary Iraqi, Lubna Naji, about her experiences of the war.
It's the evening of March the 19th, and 17-year-old Lubna Naji is at home with her relatives in Baghdad.
Well, actually, we were all in the living room. We were watching TV. And the Iraqi TV, which was like the government TV at that time, was showing like an American movie about monkeys taking over the earth. Yeah.
Planet of the Apes.
Exactly. We were all watching that movie and we were really interested in it. And suddenly the program changed and they started featuring patriotic songs about the regime, about Saddam, so we knew something was wrong. But, nothing happened. We went to sleep and it was like 5 a.m. in the morning when we heard the first noises of bombardment.
About 15 minutes ago, the air raid sirens sounded across Baghdad. Anti-aircraft artillery began firing across the night sky. There were a couple of large explosions and I can see a few large plumes of smoke. I presume that may have been targets being hit, but I cannot be certain.
When you woke up on that first night as the first bombs fell, can you remember what went through your mind?
I thought I was going to die, obviously. I was really worried about me and about my family as well. You worry that you're not going to die, but you're going to end up being crippled or being disabled. And it would be dreadful in Iraq because, healthy and well people in Iraq do not get things right. So what's it going to be like for, disabled and crippled people? Trust me, in Iraq, death is not the worst thing that could ever happen to you. There are many far worse things that could happen. It was really terrifying. It was really, really terrifying. We had electricity and we had access to the radio and we started to search for, international, media like BBC Arabic Radio and Monte Carlo International because we really wanted to know what was going on. And we knew what was going on, but we wanted to be really sure about it. Sometimes you would hear some really close noises.
A few days before the invasion had begun, Lubna, her sister and their two aunts had moved in with an uncle and his family, and they'd all set about trying to get ready for the coming onslaught.
We've taped the windows. We bought like an enormous amount of food, and actually we've had this room. We called it the shelter. It was like an internal room inside the house with no windows whatsoever. Whenever there is a bombardment, all the 8 of us would just sit inside the room and hide and wait until the bombardment is over. I was really fond of this room because it was more like of my safety net, really. Yeah.
Were you able to stay in touch with other members of the family who were elsewhere in Baghdad, elsewhere in Iraq?
No, because they all fled Baghdad. Some of them went to Karbala, some of them went to Najaf. Yes, in more safe places.
For 3 weeks, then, you did not leave the house?
I did not leave the house. Actually, my cousin was missing. He went out a short while before this war started, and we've never heard from him. So we spent those 3 weeks obsessing about his destiny. And his parents were sick worried about him, and we were all sick worried about him. We had no idea where he was, what happened to him. It was a very, very dreadful, thing. I mean, I do remember that every night before we go to sleep, we would say al-Shahada, which is like the final prayer that a Muslim would say if she were about to die. Because you never know whether you're going to die, while you're asleep. I used to hug the Holy Quran because I was really scared, We try to make conversations. We tried to laugh. We tried to chat, but it was impossible. It was impossible not to worry.
Every night you went to bed, you didn't know if you were going to wake up the next morning. You did wake up. How did the day proceed?
Well, actually, my uncle's wife used to handle all of those, day-to-day activities. Dinner, breakfast, lunch. We've had an enormous amount of food in the house.
What kind of food?
Everything. Canned food.
No fresh bread?
No fresh bread. The thing is that when it comes to Iraq, we cannot live without fresh bread. We love all kinds of bread. So when there was no bread, you start to eat and eat and eat and eat, trying to compensate the absence of bread. It was like every 5 minutes, I go to the fridge and try to take out something in order to eat, because that was the only way to diffuse the tension.
What was the weather like at that time? Was it already getting very hot?
My God, it was this dreadful sandstorm that lasted for like days. And actually, you've had this smoke. I believe that there were people who are trying to burn stuff.
There were reports at the time of ditches being filled with oil and set alight.
Exactly. There was always a smoke in the air, which was really, really unpleasant, combined with the sandstorm.
You could hardly breathe.
Of course.
Did you dare to open windows?
No, we did not. Because we've had the windows taped already. And one of my aunties is actually pretty old. She was the typical frightened elderly woman. So whenever we tried to open the windows, she would beg us to close them.
But after 3 long weeks cooped up in their house, not daring to go out, American troops rolled into Baghdad, and on the 9th of April, live on television, down came that giant statue of Saddam Hussein in the centre of the city.
It's making a grinding sound as the armoured personnel carrier tightening the tension of the ropes and the chains around the neck of the statue of Saddam Hussein. But the engines of the armoured personnel carrier are roaring. Oh, here it comes!
We knew that Saddam has gone, when they destroyed the statue. To tell you the truth, we hated Saddam. My entire family hated him. I hated him. We were so relieved that he was gone. So the 9th of April 2003 was a very happy day for us. But afterwards, you start, every year on the 9th of April, you start to think back about that dream that you've had that's been taken away from you. Because on the 9th of April, you had a time to think, and you say, yes, this is going to be a democratic, prosperous country. We're going to be as prosperous as the United Arab Emirates, or maybe even more. But as time, went by, you started to see all of those hopes and dreams getting crushed really, really slowly and gradually. So it was a very big disappointment, a very, very big disappointment.
Lubna Naji returned to school in June 2003 and she went on to study medicine.
That was Robin Lustig with Lubna Naji. That brings us to the end of this week of looking back over the past 10 years of Witness.